How to become a real estate developer. In this video, I'm going to give you high level overview points of what it takes to be a developer, what you should expect, what you're going to need as far as team, how you're going to structure your land, and how you can get the funding for your deal. Maybe you're already a real estate investor doing fix and flips. Maybe you are in the business as a real estate agent. Maybe you're already in the industry in some capacity as an investor or a flipper. I got into real estate when I was 15, started off with a property management company, did all the nasty jobs that nobody wanted to do. And now it's been over 2 decades that I've been in real estate. I have developed and built over $30 million in ground up projects. I also spent 2024 helping my brother inside of his fix and flip business. We took revenues from 9 million in 2023 to 15, just shy of 15 million at the end of 2024. So I've seen all angles. I've seen the full spectrum. I know what works for flipping. I know what works in new construction. I've lost a bunch of money in both of them, and I've made a bunch of money in both of them. Step one would be to define the role. What is a developer? The developer is the one who casts the vision. Think of it as both the coach and the quarterback. You're not swinging a hammer. You're not building the project as a contractor unless you choose to. But you are going to find the asset, identify the future value, cast a vision for the project, and then pull together the team required to do it, and then the money, and execute on it from start to finish, all the way up to your exit plan. Now, if you're currently in the industry, you already understand timelines, you understand acquisition, you understand how to manage contractors. You can take those skill sets and transfer them right over to new construction or ground up development, and which, in my opinion, if you have the patience for it, is a much better vehicle. The reason it's a better vehicle is your margins are much better. You can control your expenses better because you're dealing with a blank slate. You get to do legacy projects where you can cast a huge vision or a small vision, whether it's one infill lot in downtown New York City or a 100-lot subdivision somewhere in Florida. It still requires vision, and your profits will be better. Your timelines will be longer, but they will be cleaner. You'll have access to better funding because they're more legitimate projects, and then you will be paying much lower in interest rates and keeping better control overall of the project that you're managing. Number two is start small. You don't have to do something huge. For your first project, I would recommend focusing on buying an existing house, tearing it down, and building a single family home, or just buy a lot in a subdivision and build one house. All the skills that you'll gain along the way by doing a single family home can be transferred not only into credibility with your team and your bank, it can be transferred into 100-unit project because it's still the same steps. That's why there is a framework to this. There's a framework to getting the money. There's a framework to acquiring the property. For an example, the very first deal that I did, going from doing some flips, doing some construction, doing some value add, very first development project I did was building a single family home in a subdivision. It had an HOA. I had to go through the permitting process with the city, then with the HOA to go through the review board. But it was a great project to go from start to finish. I was a fairly young kid at the time, and on that one deal, I made $160,000 in my very first single family home. Second project I did, I graduated on to buying a piece of property that had a home sitting on it, had about 1.5 acres of property. I tied up the land, which is step number 3, is control the dirt. So I tied up the land, put it under contract. I had my terms contingent on permits and entitlements so that I didn't have to close on the project if I couldn't get my permits. We closed on the project within, I think, 3 months. We rented the house out. While we started on the back side of the property, we built 2 homes, sold both of those, and when we started home number 3 and number 4, we evicted the tenant, then demoed the house, and then completed the last 2 homes. That total project was a $90,000 acquisition, and the gross sales on it were $2.8 million. That was my second project. But the skills that I built doing one home were transferred into that slightly larger project, and then you just take it from there. Sky's the limit, et cetera, et cetera. Step four is make sure you line up your money. This is where a lot of people get tripped up because people think it's more complicated than it actually is. The reality is if you have a good deal, you have the right team, you have the good right pro forma, banks are very hungry to lend money to these types of projects. If you have control of the land and you're working on your entitlements, once you're permitted, the banks are going to lend against the future value of your project. So, for the sake of example, let's say you have a $50,000 lot under contract and it's contingent on you getting permits. Your construction expenses are $250,000. You have a total budget of $300,000. After you get your appraisal, you know that you could sell this house for $500,000. You spend roughly 30 to 50,000 in soft costs, so your expenses now are $350,000. That means when you sell that property, you make $150,000. The beauty of these new construction projects is it's not like old inventory, it's not distressed assets. A bank will lend you typically 80% on the land acquisition. So you would need 10 to 20% of that $50,000. But they will lend you in almost every case, if it's the correct lender, 100% of construction. So to make that $150,000, you might be coming out of pocket $10 or $20,000, and your interest rate is going to be at 8% or 9% as opposed to what a hard money lender wants, which right now I think is like 14, 16%. Step five would be make sure you have the right team. Like I said at the beginning of the video, you're a coach and a quarterback. And as the coach and the quarterback, you need to assemble your roster. Your roster is going to include such professionals as an architect, a civil engineer, a general contractor. And if this is your first project, I'd highly recommend working with a builder or a general contractor. You're going to need a broker, a sales agent, maybe an interior designer, maybe not, really depends on price point if you want to make that expense, and potentially an appraiser to help set the value at the beginning of the project. That's your team, and that team is going to help you make a whole bunch of money if you pick them correctly and everyone identifies that this is a win-win situation. You guys will do deals over and over and over and over again, and when you present that team to the bank over and over again, they're going to get increased confidence in your ability to execute with this team, which means they're going to give you better access to capital. Step six is learn how to run the numbers. People get hung up on this, but it's pretty simple. You have land cost, construction cost, soft costs, and then whatever's left over is profit. The ARV, damn, why am I struggling today? Step seven is execute, rinse, and repeat. As I said earlier in the video, start with something small. Do a duplex somewhere in town. Build a single family in a subdivision. Once you do one deal, you can take the exact same frameworks and principles and apply them to something much larger. Your lender is going to appreciate the fact that you're starting with something simpler. If you go for a crazy big project, you'll have a very difficult time getting funding. But if you incrementally step up the project size every time you do a new project, you're going to potentially go from doing a single family home where you made $200,000 to doing an entire subdivision where you have 50 homes that you sell and make $200,000 to $400,000 per home. But you don't start there. You work up to that. Becoming a developer isn't about jumping into this and just expecting to be an expert overnight. You have to have the right team, you have to have the right mentorship. It's not simple, but it is easy and more profitable, which last I checked, that's what everybody cares about. I'm going to continue making videos with higher levels of specificity. This is really just a conversation. I wanted to turn on my phone and run through the 10,000 foot view of what it takes to become a developer. But I will do videos where I talk about exactly how you find the land, exactly how you structure your financing, exactly how you do a construction budget. I hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching.